Forget gold. Forget Bitcoin. If you want to know who's going to rule the next decade, look at the metal in your walls and the wiring in your phone. Copper is going full supersonic. As of January 2026, we are watching the red metal break record after record, smashing past $13,000 a ton in London and staring down a $6 per pound price tag in the U.S. Why? Because the world just realized it. Running out of the one thing it needs to stay smart and green. We are entering a perfect storm where the explosion of artificial intelligence is colliding head-on with the global green energy transition. From massive AI data centers that eat copper by the ton to the millions of EVs hitting the road, the planet is literally devouring its copper supply faster than we can dig it up. Today, we're breaking down the structural deficit, the secret tech driving demand, and why the copper crunch is the most dangerous bottleneck in the global economy. When people think of AI, they think of code, the cloud, and digital ghosts. But AI is a physical beast. In 2026, the tech industry has hit a wall. You can have intelligence without massive amounts of infrastructure. And infrastructure is made of copper. Traditional data centers were already power-hungry, but AI data centers are a completely different breed. They require up to 3 times more copper per facility than a standard server farm, sometimes upwards of 50,000 tons for a single hyperscale campus. The reason is simple: density. AI chips, like the latest GPU clusters, generate insane amounts of heat and require massive electrical loads. To feed these machines, you need high-capacity power distribution units, heavy-duty transformers, and miles of dense, high-purity copper cabling. Then there's the cooling. Because these AI racks run so hot, liquid cooling systems, which rely on intricate copper heat exchangers and piping, have become the industry standard. Without copper, your AI model doesn't just slow down, it melts. We are seeing a resource land grab in the tech sector. Giants like Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI are no longer just competing for engineers. They are competing for electrical grid capacity. In the U.S. alone, data centers are projected to consume nearly 10% of the total electricity by 2028. Every single megawatt added to the grid to support AI requires tons of copper for transmission lines and substations. Analysts are calling it the digital material collision. The digital world is growing at 30% a year, but the physical world's ability to supply the copper for that growth is stagnant. This isn't just a shortage. It was a structural crisis that could see tech companies outbidding manufacturers for every available pound of the red metal. While AI is the new shock to the system, the green energy transition is the relentless weight-pushing copper towards sixth. We've known for years that the green revolution is actually a copper revolution. But in 2026, the math is finally catching up with us. An electric vehicle, EV, contains about 85 kilograms, 187 lbs, of copper, nearly 4 times more than a gasoline car. This copper is everywhere, in the motor windings, the battery bus bars, and the extensive wiring harnesses. If the world wants 100 million EVs on the road, it needs a mountain of copper that simply doesn't exist yet. But the car is only half the story. You have to charge it. Fast charging infrastructure is a copper hog. A single 350 kilowatt fast charger requires industrial-grade copper conductors that are vastly thicker than anything in your home. Multiply that by millions of charging stations globally, and you start to see why the supply is evaporating. Then, look at where the power comes from. A single offshore wind turbine can require 15 tons of copper to connect its generator to the grid. Solar farms are just as intensive, requiring massive amounts of copper for the inverters and the miles of cables connecting the panels. The biggest issue? The grid upgrade. Our electrical grids were built for the 20th century, not the 21st. To handle the surge from AI and the shift to renewables, the world needs to replace millions of miles of aging transmission lines. S&P Global recently warned that the supply deficit could reach 10 million metric tons by 2040. In 2026, we are seeing the first real cracks in the system. The projects are being delayed not because of money, but because contractors literally cannot find enough copper wire to finish the job. The green dream is hitting a red reality, so why don't we just dig more? This is where the story gets gritty. Copper mining is one of the slowest, most capital-intensive businesses on Earth. On average, it takes 17 to 20 years to move a copper project from discovery to the first pound of production. The mines that are opening today are the result of decisions made back in the mid-2000s. We are currently paying the price for the lack of investment during the 2010s when copper prices were low. Furthermore, the easy copper is gone. In the world's top producing regions like Chile and Peru, ore grades are declining. 20 years ago, a ton of rock might have given you 1% or 2% copper. Today, miners are lucky to get 0.7%. This means you have to move twice as much dirt, use twice as much water, and burn twice as much fuel just to get the same amount of metal. This isn't just an environmental problem, it's an economic one. It raises the floor of copper prices. Even if demand dipped, the cost to produce copper is now so high that 4 posiers or 5 sozerard is the new break-even for many mines. Then there's resource nationalism. Countries like Panama have recently shut down major mines, like Cobre Panama, due to environmental protests and political pressure. In Chile, new taxes and stricter water regulations are slowing down expansions. The world's supply is concentrated in a few hands. 6 countries control 2/3 of the output. If one of them has a strike, a landslide, or a political shift, the global price spikes instantly. In 2026, with a projected 150,000-ton deficit this year alone, there is zero margin for error. Every pound is spoken for before it even leaves the ground. This brings us to the final, most dangerous stage of the copper crunch, geopolitics. Copper has officially moved from a commodity to a national security asset. The U.S. recently added copper to its critical minerals list, a move that signals Washington is ready to treat copper like it treats oil or semiconductors. Why? Because the U.S. realizes it has a massive copper gap compared to China. China currently controls over 50% of the world's copper smelting capacity. They import nearly 60% of all global copper ore and process it into the refined plates and wires the world needs. This gives Beijing a stranglehold on the tech and green energy supply chains. If you want to build a data center in Virginia or a wind farm in Scotland, you are likely buying copper that was refined in China. In 2026, as trade tensions rise, the fear is that China could weaponize its copper dominance, much like it did with rare earths. In response, we are seeing a scramble for the Americas. The U.S. is aggressively pushing for new mining projects in Arizona and Alaska, but they are running into decades of legal and environmental red tape. Meanwhile, deglobalization is changing the market. We are moving toward a bifurcated market, where Western companies are willing to pay a premium for clean, ethical, and local copper, while the rest of the world trades in whatever is cheapest. This security premium is a major reason why $6 copper is becoming a reality. It is no longer about what copper is worth, it is about what you'd be willing to pay to ensure your rival doesn't get it first. The world is splitting into copper haves and copper have-nots, and in 2026, the price reflects the desperation of those trying to stay on the right side of that line. So, there you have it. The red metal is no longer just for pipes and pennies. It is the backbone of the AI revolution and the green energy future. When you see copper hitting $6 a pound, don't think of it as a price hike. Think of it as a systemic warning. The world is trying to build a 21st century utopia on a 20th century resource base, and the math just doesn't add up. What do you think? Is $6 copper just the beginning Or will the high prices force us to find a substitute? Can we actually innovate our way out of a physical shortage? Or are we about to see the first major AI slowdown caused by a lack of metal? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is a debate that involves every piece of tech you own. And if you want to stay ahead of the curve on the resources that actually run the world, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and stay tuned. The red fever is just getting started. See you in the next one.